we are the bastard stepchild of the world, and it's by design. I mean, if you want to take me to task on it, look at after World War I, how they actually had a meeting with a map of Africa, and Europe just carved up Africa. So as politicians and governors are trying to fight an uphill battle, you have the central bank kind of tempering that. And so we need to understand more than just writing checks, more than just 850 credit scores. We need to understand how global systems work for us and against us, because white supremacy and what's happening to us it's a global thing.
AXE2CAP, let me put you on game. AXE2CAP, look at all that you could gain. Business moves, loans and grants, it's all a part of the game. You could learn all of this, let the Queen Sheba explain. AXE2CAP, let me put you on.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of AXE2CAP. I'm your host, Sansari Cicero, and excited to have our special guest today, Avery Gaddis. Avery Gaddis is the Chief Lending Officer at Hedco Inc., which is a CDFI located in Hartford, Connecticut. And we're excited to talk to him about economic development, business equity, and access to capital. Because I truly believe entrepreneurship is freedom. After spending almost 3 decades in corporate America and corporate human resources, I truly believe that I found a freedom that I've been looking for the last 3 decades. Mm-hmm. So how do we introduce this freedom to this generation?
You know, before I answer that, I just want to say I also think it's important that our children understand that they do need to partner with folks from other ethnicities and other countries. We need to be global citizens. We need to be global citizens. However, at the back of their mind or the forefront of their mind, they need to understand and be very, very aware of how these systems and institutions were engineered not to our benefit. We can't let these folks be ignorant to that. We can't, you know.
You know, it's one of the things that we used to, and I'm assuming they still push in corporate America, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And most people think it's just about affirmative action and equal employment opportunity. And no, it's more than that. It's teaching people how to respect the differences of others, different nationalities. How do you be a successful team that's made up of multiple nationalities and multiple races and multiple dialects? What does that look like? Because you're not the only one that's living in this world alone. Mm-hmm. How do you succeed together? And how do you help others understand your plight in life? Because we still struggling. I don't know the last time, if anyone's checked, but the last time I checked, we still had some work to do. Mm-hmm. Going back to George Floyd and going back to let's just talk about January 1st. Let's talk about January 6th. We could talk about the insurrection all day. We could talk about a number of different things. We, as individuals of color, still have a lot of work to do and still have huge obstacles that we have to push past and push through. How do we equip our babies and some of our adults, our parents? How do we equip people to survive in this type of climate?
Mm-hmm. You know, I actually never, admittedly, I never really cared for DEI because I'm not built to beg white people for anything, and I do my own DEI. Yeah. So that never really worked for me. And actually, affirmative action, and then its sister DEI. And remember, it was liberals who came up with that term. We never came up with the term. That was kind of introduced to us. More Caucasian women than any other group has benefited from welfare and DEI, along with folks from the LGBTQ community in Asia. DEI statistically actually does not benefit foundational Black Americans. It just doesn't. That's a myth. So when Trump or whoever is talking about DEI, that doesn't, the numbers say that doesn't really impact us. It doesn't in any way, statistically, you know. Yeah. We got to be responsible for our own DEI. by having businesses where I could send my baby to you for an internship for a job. You could send your baby to me for an internship for a job. And the fundamental flaw in how we're structured and how we allow ourselves to be structured is the fact that we're just overly reliant on others. And our interest is not their primary interest. I mean, look, there's some good folks who help us out. There's some very good folks who help us out. I mean, John Brown lost all his sons, right? And we love those folks who help us out. But there's also many folks who they think that by being silent, they're helping us out. But, that speaks volumes. No one puts the cape on for us. And we have to remind these people who always say, what are you guys going to do about DEI? Are you mad? They like to use us as the tip of the sword. They like to use us as the sword. We're always out front being the mascots for everybody. But at the end of the day, nobody puts the cape on for us. So until we put the cape on for ourselves and we're self-sufficient and we kind of operate like some other ethnic groups where the money bounces around the community 12, 14 times instead of not even one time in our community. That's an actual number that's been true for decades. The money in our community goes into our community and goes right out of our community. Other groups, all things being equal, will buy from themselves, or patronize each other's stores, set up businesses, ancillary side businesses, vertical businesses with each other. And we don't have that type of approach. So fundamentally, I just think we have a lot of work to do downstream as some of our thought leaders are working how to get upstream. So it's a situation where we have to walk on true gum. We have to do battle on the multitude of fronts. And battle is an adversarial word, but that's what I'm going to call it.
Okay.
Battle.
It's war. We're at war right now.
And let's talk about battle. I think that, I think we have too many maybe effeminate black men. I think that part of what's going on in our community is, with welfare and affirmative action and all this other stuff in the 70s, you have weakened the family unit. I mean, you could look at the statistics and studies, and you look at from 68 to 72, when you look at the introduction of welfare and the fact that people told our women, if your man is in the house, you can't get a check.
Yes.
And you see this drop in the family unit with the introduction of these policies. That's by design. They see the numbers like we see the numbers, and they know the destruction that policy is having on our families, and they haven't corrected. So I think that we need to acknowledge the pains that ills our community and be a little bit more forceful. I think we're waiting around a little bit too much for people to save us. And we need men to step up and handle business. Business. Real men.
I agree.
Warriors, Zulus.
How do we teach boys how to be men, especially when they grow up in the homes without them?
And that's a beautiful question, because I grew up, me and my brother, he's 2 years younger than me. I'm 50. He's going to be 48 in May. My mother made sure that, to use some street vernacular, we have some OGs around us that, because we went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school.
OGs.
I went across town. I went to school across town. And
Minister Bob Reese.
And what was very important? There was some Dominicans, there's some blacks, a couple of Jamaicans. They would never let my brother and I get into trouble, and they always looked out for my mom, and that really resonated and hit me. It was visceral for me. And so, growing up in that situation, because I grew up in a situation with the Latin Kings, Los Solitos, Black Gangster Disciple, all that stuff in the 90s, all that banging. But as a community, as an ecosystem, there were certain male figures. I mean, I don't know what nefarious things they were doing.
Right.
But as far as the way they treated my brother and I, there were always men in our life, whether at the street level, in academics, and then, my professional career, who served as mentors and father figures who basically call me on my own crap. They would hold the mirror to my face and they'd be like, hey, you got to slow down. Those type of individuals who throw speed bumps in your way, to make sure you don't go off the cliff. So I think real mentorship, not because we want to do social media posts.
Right.
Too many of these raggedy, dusty dudes out here, they're getting too much attention on social media.
Right.
You're either 10 toes down in the community because you really mean it, and you're doing it altruistically, or you're 10 toes down because you want to do a social media post.
Right.
And so you say you're mentoring these kids, you say you're engaging these kids, but our kids are in trouble. And too many of us are too much for the show and not really doing the work. Listen, if you go to my social media, my Facebook, I think the last time I posted was 2020. Because if I do something good, I don't need to tell you. I just do it and keep it moving, go do it again. I don't need to have a Facebook party. Whoa, look at me. And so we need real men and women, our professional class, our academic class, our church leaders like it used to be with grandmama. And then the church needs to step up. I don't know where the black church is. That's a whole nother conversation. But they're not the black church that I remember when my grandmother was bringing me to church, or my mama, because you used to have the banking in the church.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we need a multitude of individuals and professions from our situation to step up and help us out. And if we do it block by block, it's manageable.
Right.
Just try to have influence in where you are, your little area. Don't worry. Just influence your little area. And everybody did that across the country, across the world. Worry about your little locus of influence. Everybody's worried about, I don't even know what to worry about, but we're not getting the job done.
Everybody else.
Probably.
They're not worried about their circle of influence. They're worried about everyone else, because we live in this fast social media life where individuals want to know. It's clickbait. Mm-hmm. It's constant clickbait. They want to know what someone else is doing all the time. They are intrigued. They calibrate their success up against someone else's, not really realizing if it's fake news, real news, you haven't vetted it, things become true as soon as you hear it. And so, it's concerning. It's concerning that we live in a climate right now where false information can run rampant through this world in less than 67 seconds. 67 seconds from a 5-year-old to a 75-year-old. That those different generational mixes can receive false information in less than 67 seconds. And about 2/3 of them won't even vet it. And so how do we because it's not going away, right? Social media is not going away. We can combat the system. The system has been ingrained, has grown tentacles that can't easily be, plucked out of our communities. How do we navigate, the conversations to the system? And how do we create a family, a community, and a network that's all going in the same direction?
I like that you said network. One of the things that I think is critical, and a lot of our babies don't get this piece. And if they do get this piece, it's usually later in life. I kind of got it later in life. Is you have to be able to gracefully and skillfully navigate society. So, take someone like myself. One morning I could have coffee with my mother. In the afternoon, I could sit down with billionaires, and at 6 o'clock, I'm in a room trying to keep a couple of murderers from shooting up the neighborhood, and I think that's a skill that we need to impart on our children is how to navigate different social circles. And some of that is going to come with the second piece of it is we don't have discussions and conversations with our sons and daughters about how to process emotions. Especially how to process anger. And there's tons of literature, tons of study out there, and we kind of leave it to chance. We kind of leave it to circumstances. We kind of leave it to maturity and evolution, and we should not. We should be very intentional about giving our young tykes instruction about how to process their emotions. and how to really grapple with those feelings, because some of these kids can act out, they could take a bad path. So I think that's very critical in our community as a basic building block to teach our children how to process their feelings, and that it's okay to feel a kind of way about it. And that's key. I also think it's critical to teach our babies that they always have to be invested in themselves and never fall into victimhood. Listen, you're either going to get pulled through life or you're going to march through life triumphantly, deliberately, you know? And too many of us wake up every day and we do the same thing because we get stuck in routines. Everybody has their routine they do every day until they wake up in their 90 and dying, and then they're having a woulda, coulda, shoulda talk. So we really have to also school our kids and our family members about really being deliberate, really being intentional about how they live their lives. Every day you wake up should be very thoughtful. Everything you do should be thoughtful. You shouldn't just wing it. You should steer your ship to safe harbor. That's what you should be doing. And that's what we have to teach the kids, because critical thinking is not there. To your point about fake news and being able to spot it, we need to help our kids develop tools to be better, faster, and effective critical thinkers, critical thinking, and not be emotional. Be a little bit more stoic, a little less emotional.
I love that. I love that. And on that note, we really appreciate you. Appreciate having you here with us. We know that you have so much more to give, so we would love to have you come back on and talk about mental health in our communities and resources and advocating for our young people. And how do we get the resources and the access to capital to our community that they need? By changing the mindset, by changing the narrative, by giving them the confidence that they need to self-guide and self-direct. Once again, Avery Gaddis, Chief Lending Officer with Tyco Inc. Thank you so much for being here with Sheba and AXE2CAP. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, on our social media handles. Sheba, AXE2CAP, we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you and have a good one.
AXE2CAP, let me put you on game. AXE2CAP, look at all that you could gain. Business moves, loans, and grants, it's all a part of the game. You could learn all of this, let the Queen Sheba explain. AXE2CAP, let me put you on